Hello everyone, this is Pastor Roland, and today I want to talk about trauma. I'm writing a new chapter in my book. I have a brand new book about hypnosis coming out very soon. And I've written a lot of books already where I touch on the topic of hypnosis. But today I just want to talk about trauma. You see, what does trauma mean? Trauma means change. Trauma brings about change. And what happened to the human race in the Garden of Eden was that there was a big trauma, which resulted in a change of allegiance from the inner to the outer. And this change of allegiance, or change of environment, if you will, is what happens to all of us. We're born already as changed creatures of the lineage of Adam and Eve. We're born into what's called original sin. But then in our own life, our traumas change us even more. And trauma, so let's talk about the change from the inner to the outer. You see, when you're a little child, you could have grown if you had not been traumatized. If people hadn't messed with you and you hadn't reacted to their messing with you, then you would have grown as the good Lord intended for you to grow, with the identity that He had for you to become what He intended. And your whole life, all of your experiences, good or bad, would have been helpful in bringing forth that inner nature that was growing within you, to fashion a very noble person and a very wise one, very intelligent one. You could have been an Einstein, a Madame Curie, a Sojourner Truth, a Susan B. Anthony, Michael Faraday, a James Clerk Maxwell, a Winston Churchill. But something went wrong, and you were changed. So what happened was, instead of flowing from within, the shock of the change, the pressure from the outside. From the time you're a little child, people who themselves had been subject to pressure and were changed, then did to others what was done to them. For example, your parents, your unloved, misguided, sometimes wicked parents, not to mention teachers and everyone else, were bound and determined to change you. They tell you to make something of yourself. Make something of yourself, they say, in an ambitious kind of a way. If you had been left alone to flower, you could have become the Einstein or the Madame Curie. The Pavarotti, the Mozart. But they were determined to change you. You resisted it, but unfortunately, you didn't know how to resist properly their seductions and their temptation and their tease and their cruelty. And you fell mostly by way of resentment. To some extent, you may have been bamboozled by someone on the outside, your sainted mother, for example, or a sainted teacher. You might have been totally bamboozled and worshipped them, and taken into them thereby their nature and their programming and their will. Their will for your life. A lot of kids, for example, this is an aside, but it's an important one. A lot of kids, for example, they get close to their mother, and there's not a good rapport with father for some reason. Father's not there for the child, or father is, a decent guy, but he's just sort of a non-factor. But the child is very close to mother, and that child, male or female, takes on mother's identity, but also her will. Now, very often, mom resents her husband because he's weak, he's not there for her, He doesn't have the special love that she needs. He saddles her with responsibility, whatever the case may be, so she resents him. And the child then takes in that resentment, that hatred toward father, that is the mother's hate. But the child takes it in and adopts it for itself, and then hates father. But it could be, many years later, the adult child will look back and say, you know something? My dad wasn't really that bad of a guy. I didn't really want to hate him, but I did somehow. Had contempt for him. But it was mother's hate, mother's judgment of him and all men. Mother's contempt for him. See? And so often the child, upon seeing that and realizing, see, that it was never his hate. See, she set him up to resent his father. See how that works? Or her father. Okay, well that's an aside, but now let's talk about the trauma. So your development, your growth should have come from within. Okay? And that internal development would have been nurtured by the good Lord. Okay? But instead, you were shocked, traumatized, changed by the pressures, the seductions, the teases. See, how many of you had a cruel babysitter or a cruel older sister who was like your mom? See, or a cruel older brother. See, or a cruel father, or a seductive sister, or a seductive cousin. See what I mean? Naughty cousins. See? So one way or another, you fell, and often the door is opened by, as I said before, resentment. See, when you resent something on the outside, you fall away from love. See, if you didn't resent what was on the outside, you would have remained at one or in rapport with the development from the inside. But by resenting, see, that was the reaction that then opened you to the outside, and thereby you were imprinted by what was on the outside. Okay? And so your development was transferred from the inner to the outer, and now the outer environment, and in this case the environment of your tempters, the seducers, the tempters, the cruel ones, the pressuring ones, see, who pressured you. See, they became your environment. Okay? And so, because they were your environment, you began to be shaped. Instead of being shaped from within, you were shaped by them. That's how we end up becoming what we hate or what we fell to. Okay? And so, therefore, changing in their image and taking in their identity, okay, you thereby became dependent on them because they became your source of reinforcement, of support, of approval, of reassurance. See, your environmental source of reassurance, which we call love. It's not really love. It's like see, a cat has its environment, needs to rub on the trees and roll in the grass and find its little bed somewhere, see, full of cat hairs and twigs and everything else, but it likes it because that's its environment. Well, you have fell to the environment of those who you hated on the outside. Your weak father, your seductive or fierce mother, your cruel older brother, your seductive teacher or your pressuring teacher, the bullies, see, those who lorded it over you with knowledge, or the gang members who acted cool and, you wanted to be like because you resented them. So that became your environment. Okay? Well, and so therefore you came to need them. So the very ones who teased you, who corrupted you, see, who made you fall, the very ones that you fell, you then had to cling to, because that was now, since you could no longer grow from within to be the Einstein or the Madame Curie. Now all you had is what was on the outside, and so you needed it for a pattern of growth, something to become like them, and for love, for reassurance, for approval, for reinforcement. See, and so that is how we come to love what we hate. We can actually have a need for that which we hate. See, not to mention the substances then which you also fall to on the outside. See, if you take you fall to a drug, you fall to marijuana, you fall to pornography, you fall to promiscuous sex. See, you fall to food, okay, which comforts you, and which you use to comfort your now falling self. See, but you hate those things because they are enslaving you. But you also need them, and that need is like a love. But when you get their love, their approval, their support, their reinforcement, their lowly pleasures that they offer you, see, you're worse off because you fell again. By going back to them for more, all you did was fall again. See, it's like jiu-jitsu. You go for them and then they trip you up and you fall. Okay, so you see how that works? Now the other thing is they take your life, those temptations. See, it says, remember in the Garden of Eden, in the original fall, God said to Adam, in the day that you eat of that forbidden fruit, that was the traumatic fruit. That was the peyote, that was the amphetamine, see, whatever it was. Maybe it was an apple, maybe it was something else, but whatever it was, that's the way in which Adam fell, and along with him Eve. Okay, and so thereafter, see, he hates that because that's reminds him of his failing. But that hatred is just another response to the outer, which makes a person feel empty. But those things also take your life. That's the point I was getting at, is that God said when you eat of that fruit, whatever it was, then you will surely die. Because two things happen. First, you are separated from the life that comes from within, from God. His light and His love, His energy. See, Adam and Eve could have been perpetually renewed every day, renewed by the light and love and warmth of the Creator and His approval. They could have lived forever on earth. But instead they changed. See? So two things happened. They fell away from the light and they began to die. Just like if you take a plant, take it out of the sun, put it in a dark closet, it's going to begin to die. Well, that's what happens to us. It took Adam 600 years to die. It takes us, if we're lucky, we might get 70 or 80 years upon this earth. Okay? If we're lucky. If some temptation doesn't get to us some earlier, see. But, so it takes you, so not only are you cut off from from the renewing life from God, so now you're just like a battery, see, that to be drained and drained and drained, and then eventually the battery goes dead with life force. But also these temptations, they are a demand for your life. See, the tempting person, the cruel one. See, the cruel one, when you respond, when you react with resentment or whatever, see, he takes your life, or she takes your life, a little bit of your life. See, it takes a little bit of your life, and in exchange gives you a little bit of their identity. When you swoon over someone that you think some star or some person that you're swooning over, the person takes a little bit of your life, gives you a little bit of their identity. See, when you fall down and worship your amphetamine or your cocaine or your marijuana because of how it makes you feel, see, when you worship it or you worship your music, see, it takes a little bit of your life, and you get a little bit of its identity, especially when it's a person. Okay, but they all take your life. Doesn't they drain you when you go on vacation? See, when you go on vacation to a tempting environment, see, where their sole purpose is to take your money. Okay, so you go to tempting environments on vacation, and you eat too much and drink too much, and you go on a cruise, and then there's too much food, and there's gambling and everything. It's nothing. It's just wall-to-wall temptation. You'd be better off to stay home and read, ponder life, work in the garden, go for a bike ride. But no, you go on this expensive vacation, and so it takes your life. It takes your monetary life. And when you come back, you even feel drained. You feel more tired when you come back than before you left. See? It says in the Bible, the wages of sin is death. Or is it our death? I always forget it. The wages of sin are death, or the wages of sin is death. But anyway, you get the idea. The wages of sin is, the bottom line of sin is death. Okay? So your allegiance is transferred, and you become subject to, in every way possible that you can imagine, to the environment to which you fall. And that also explains hypnosis, the hypnotic. See, why are you hypnotically drawn to your drugs, to your music? See, to the wrong people. See, to false lovers. See, to ambitious environments, to people that are like your father. See? You think, my God, why am I marrying someone who's just like my father? You marry someone just like your mother. Okay? And their words. You believe more in their words than in what you know in your heart. See? You are subject to them. See, it's a rule. It's a basic principle that you become subject. That which bests you. I believe it was Peter who said it. It might have been James who said that, by which you are bested, to that you are a slave. So it's a rule. See, an animal is subject to the environment. See, there are no loose cannons in the universe. The cat, the dog, the giraffe, the bear, the deer, and of course the plant. They're subject to their environment. Okay, to the authority of the environment. Well, you are subject to the temptations to which you fell. Okay. And one of the ways you're subject is hypnosis, which is an enslavement, which is a way in which you are bonded to it and must obey it, whether you like it or not. It's that simple. Just the way a cat or a dog or a bunny rabbit, see, a deer are subject to their environment. Likewise, you're subject to whatever you fell to, hypnotically and in every other way. So now you see, I've given you a little whirlwind tour of this. So if you want to know more about this, you'll have to wait for my book on hypnosis. But I have already written a book. See, and the other thing is cancer. See, there are different reasons for cancer. Some of them are environmental, some hereditary. But there's also some cancers that are due to the identity of that dark, overshadowing identity, which is behind all of our traumas, which is evil itself. And as it impresses itself upon us, that we take on and it manifests itself as the deformed, confused, twisted, parasitic, dark, faceless, formless entity within, which is cancer. Okay? But I have a wonderful book about it talks about different aspects of the trauma scene in the Garden of Eden and about food. See, why is it that we're so subject to food? Why do we have to live to eat instead of just eat to live? Here's my book, Forbidden Food. Forbidden Food, The Legacy of Paradise Lost and the Promise of Redemption. It's a very beautiful book. Okay, it's about trauma, about change, about food, about the Garden of Eden, about men and women. Okay, so I highly recommend this book. It's available on Amazon or from me for a small donation. It's in Kindle and also in quality paperback, Forbidden Fruit. All right, I hope you enjoyed this little lecture. My name is Pastor Roland.